Hey there, as a Latter-day Lights listener, I want to give you a very special gift today. My brand new book, Faith to Stay. This book is filled with inspiring stories, powerful discoveries, and even fresh insights to help strengthen your faith during the storms of life. So, if you're looking to be inspired, uplifted, and spiritually recharged, just visit faithtostay.com. Now, let's get back to the show. Hey everyone, I'm Scott Brandley.
And I'm Alicia Coakley. Every member of the church has a story to share, one that can instill faith, invite growth, and inspire others.
On today's episode, we're going to hear how one painter, sculptor, and doctor has learned that the strongest testimonies are often built when faith and effort are put forth on our end. Welcome to Latter-day Lights. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Latter-day Lights. We're so glad you're here with us today. We're really excited to introduce our special guest, Dr. Steve Neal, to the show. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for reaching out to us. You actually reached out to us quite a while ago. And I remember when you told us about your story and you sent over the pictures and videos, I was so jealous that I'm not over there in Utah. And I can't go see all these things you put in place.
But I don't waiting.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil too much. So before we get into all of the amazing things that you're going to share with us, and trust me, guys, like this is one of those episodes that you are going to want to watch and listen to. You're not just going to want to listen to it. So listen first if you have to, but go back through because Steve is going to be sharing a lot of pictures and stuff and videos with us for your viewing pleasure. So before we get started, Steve, will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I now live in Heber City, Utah. I grew up in Utah, graduated from Murray High School, but I've been away for 45 years. We came back because that's where the Monument of the Americas is going to be built in the Heber Valley here. And I retired about a year and a half ago from my medical
Congratulations.
practice. Thank you. Well, I'm still working hard, but
Yeah.
I'm a full-time sculptor. I was a facial plastic surgeon. That's what got me into sculpture. That's right.
Need your services.
That's what I did. 6 daughters. They're all, of course, raised. We raised them in Pendleton, Oregon. That's where I live.
Wow.
37 years in one city, one practice setting. So I went to BYU, then University of Texas Medical School, San Antonio, Texas, trained in surgery. Otolaryngology, head and neck surgery, facial plastic surgery at University of California, San Diego. And that's where I started doing sculpture, actually. I'd always been a painter, but my professor said, if you want to master facial plastic surgery, you got to take up sculpture. And I did. He says, that's where all the errors are made. We teach one another techniques, but nobody can teach you judgment. You have to learn that on your own, and that's what sculpture teaches you. It's I can tell it more about it later, but anyway, here I am in Heber, Utah. I haven't done any surgery now for a year and a half, but I put in about 60 to 75 hours a week of doing sculpture. I'm working real hard to get everything enlarged. They've all been created, but now we're enlarging them. So it takes a lot of work.
That's phenomenal.
And high level, you're creating a sculpture park in Heber City called Monument of Americas, and that's I know that's part of your story, but just to give people a little bit of more background there, what you're working on.
Monument of Americas, first and foremost, is there are 2 gardens. Christ in America, basically, is the Book of Mormon in sculpture. Mm-hmm. So after I'm dead and gone, it'll continue to be added to by other qualified sculptors. It'll become the largest, most unique place to learn about the Book of Mormon in the world. So.
Wow.
That's so cool.
That's going to be amazing. I'm so excited. Well, thank you for sharing that. We're definitely excited to hear how you've become this super accomplished gentleman, how you got into being a doctor and art and where this idea came from and all of that kind of stuff. So we would love to invite you to tell us where your story began.
Okay. I'm 72 years old now. You have to go back to at least 65, 68 years, when I was 4 years old, I guess. Why that? Because people ask me, when did you start doing art? I mean, when did it become a passion? I said, it's always been that. I was intensively, I remember at 4 years of age, asking my mother to draw a cat in sacrament meeting, and I would draw a cat.
Wow.
I always have drawn. When I was a Boy Scout, I was doing color pencil pictures out of the Boy Scout handbook that I really liked, or the encyclopedia. When I got to be a teenager, I then started doing psychedelic posters, that San Francisco flavor, for my friends. And I would use acrylic paints and pen. And then I looked at it and I said, gee, these aren't going to last very long. I want to do something that will last, a big painting. You're going to laugh. My first oil painting is 10 feet long by 5 feet tall. I hang it in my garage. It has 50 life-size birds. And that's when I graduated to oil painting. I did that as a teenager when I was 15. So then I went on a mission to Japan. When I came back, I wanted to do a serious oil painting for one of the converts in Japan of Joseph Smith in the Grove with the Father and the Son. And it was pretty rudimentary, but I was still doing oil painting, thinking, well, I'm going to go into medicine I kind of said, you don't want to be an artist and raise a family as an artist. You're going to be a starving artist. So I was wired on both sides of my brain. I wanted to do medicine. And so I thought I was going to leave all of this behind. And then I had a very profound spiritual experience. It was in February 1976. It was 3 months before I got married to my wife, Susan. We were at BYU, and there was a 12-stake fireside, and President Boyd K. Packer came. He was Elder Packer at the time. And he gave a very persuasive and a hallmark address for me. It was for artists, creative people. There are a lot of people out there listening to this, and they know exactly which one I'm talking about. But I thought he was talking to me, and I'll tell you why. He went in and said, we have lots of artists in the church, very accomplished artists in sculpture and in painting and in art production and so forth. However, for having so many artists, we hardly have any quality art, high art that talks about the message of the restoration. And then he said something. He says, I think the people in the church that will make this contribution are those who don't consider themselves very gifted. In fact, he was talking to me. At that time, I thought I was, nothing, I didn't have really a lot of God-given talent in art. I just thought, what I did was okay. But he's talking to me because I don't think my gift is very significant. And he said, this really caught me. Who thinks their talent is barely adequate. Those are the exact words. And it just like an electric jolt to me. He's talking to me. Anyway. He said, those would be the people. Who will make lasting contributions to the church. The church's art, the corpus of works that would really help strengthen the testimony of others in the church through this powerful medium. So what did I have to offer at the time? I was this mediocre painter, oil painter, and I made a covenant with God, and I did it that very day. I said, Lord, if you will bless my talents, then make them better. I promise that I will make all my efforts in trying to produce art that will talk about the message of the restoration, particularly the Book of Mormon, which has always been my favorite book and has been even more strengthened since that time. So I started to do that. It took me a while. I got into medical school, and this is a funny thing. My first serious Book of Mormon painting was while I was a medical student in Texas, and it was the Enos, basically Enos praying, and it was actually a self-portrait. And the way I did it, I tried to put some different things into it. And then I did another painting in my second year of medical school, and I did a third painting. That third painting is behind me, by the way. You can't see it very well, but that's Hagoth, the builder of ships. That was actually a patient of mine is Hagoth. I thought he looked like Hagoth. He's holding this rod, a stick, and it was actually an IV pole. And I thought, hey, this is cool. and so I did three Book of Mormon paintings while I was in medical school. And that was, we didn't have a job except go to school, so that was good. Anyway, that's my how I got started.
Okay.
I went to University of California, San Diego for residency. And it was during that time that I did another painting, and then I always wanted to do Lehi's Dream, because there weren't a lot of paintings of Lehi's Dream. I remember kind of sketchy ones. I know there's a lot now, but back in 1985, there weren't. And people ask me, how do you get the inspiration for the paintings you do? It might be unique. I don't know. My paintings and the ideas in terms of the blocking and the view you have, they come in a flash, in an instant. I think that's God's gift to me. And then I spend all my time hammering out the details where everything goes. Now, Lehi's Dream, I wanted to view that from under the tree, looking back to where faithful people came along the rod of iron, down into the depths of the dark mists, and came up and look across this chasm to the great and spacious building. And I wanted to be people looking at it closely, to be able to see the people who were mocking the humble followers of God. Now, for that to take place, the painting had to get really big. So to go from regular paintings, 36 by 24 inches, whatever, this one became 8 feet by 4 feet. And it took,
Holy cow.
It took me 2 years to do while I was in residency, and I had 4 kids at the time, and my wife, and well, when did you do it, doctor? I did it at nights when everybody was asleep, or I did it on weekends or vacations. That's why that took 2 years to do.
Wow.
Just as I finished it, my mother-in-law, I credit her, she said, Steve, there's a big church art contest from the Church Museum. It's an international contest. They've been advertising it. Why don't you put this in there? I thought, oh, sure, why not? So I sent them a picture, and then they said, after they, I guess adjudicated to some degree, they said, can you bring it to Salt Lake? By this time, we had moved to Pendleton, Oregon, and it was my daughter's painting. I have 6 daughters, and I created a Book of Mormon painting for each one of my daughters. Heidi was first, the oldest one. She's the one that lives in Texas, by the way, Alicia. So she was 5 years old at the time when I started painting it. And by then she was more like 8 or 9. And we drove it down to Salt Lake, pulling it in a trailer and delivered it to.
How do you take a picture of that on the road?
Well, it was the only thing in the trailer, so we laid it flat. Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
And we drove it down there because I couldn't put it in the car. And but I was busy with my practice, and I said, it'll never get a prize anyway. I never thought it would. But then they called me up and they said, you're getting a prize. Why don't you come down here on the night of? So, okay, I'll do that. And anyway, it was a grand prize winner. I mean, it was the first prize. They wanted to buy it. And I said, it's not for sale. It's my daughter's. But if you put it on display in the museum, I'll let you have it. So it was there for over 30 years. Over 1 million people have seen it. In fact, if you look in Come Follow Me, for the last 2 times, the church used that painting for Lehi's Dream. After 33 years or so, they got a new curator, and the curator says, "Hey, we don't have any paintings on loan for 30 years. So tell the owner they have to donate it, or we have to buy it, or we're going to send it back." Now, by then, my daughter has children of her own, and she wanted them to see it. They were going to put it away for 10 years. So they ended up shipping it back. And it ended up at my house again. I have it out there. It's going to go into the visitor center for Monument of America. So see, I'm a serious painter. But why do you start doing sculpture? That's the next story. That happened. I know exactly when that happened. It was in May 30 years ago. So that's 1996. I mentioned before, why did I start doing sculpture? 40 years ago, my professor in facial plastic surgery said, if you want to master facial plastic surgery, you need to take up sculpture, because that's where all the mistakes are made. We teach one another the techniques, but where we really make the mistakes is when we did it too much or not enough, or we tried to get some unattainable goal, and we stretch and we do something we shouldn't have done that. And that's where the mistakes are done. And so just a quick aside, if any of you know about neuroscience, you know about the left side of the brain, the right side of the brain. There's quite a difference between even female brains and male brains, but all of us have this dominant, what we call the dominant side of the brain. For Americans, it's usually the left side. And that's where doctors are selected for left brain skills. Those are the skills that are reading and writing and communication and mathematics and science and so forth. Mm-hmm. The right side of the brain is wordless, doesn't measure time. That's where recognition of faces, directions, sculpture, where you're trying to imagine what shape you're trying to make it, including a face. If you're trying to do a facelift or a chin implant or something, you want it to look just so. Most importantly, it's a rhinoplasty, which that's where you change the shape of the nose job. Mm-hmm. Because that surgery, you have more ability to alter the shape of the nose than any other plastic surgery operation. It's also the hardest plastic surgery operation to successfully have good results time after time. In fact, I taught sculpting exercises for fellow facial plastic surgeons for over 15 years. My mentor, Leslie Bernstein, who was instrumental getting me to take up sculpture, had me come to San Francisco for the art of rhinoplasty. It was the longest ongoing rhinoplasty course. It was 50-something years until he finally passed away. That's why I took it up. For 10 years, that's all I thought. It was kind of fun and make me a better surgeon. So in May of 1996, if you remember back then, those of you who are temple goers, that's when music was added to the film presentation of the endowment. And my very first time I went to the Portland Temple, that was our temple district in Oregon, but the spirit was very, very powerful, very strong. I tell people that I don't see visions like the prophet Joseph saw visions, but that's as close as I've come. In my mind's eye, I could see a sculptured garden with a central figure of Christ, larger than all the rest of the figures. And at the same time, what came to my mind were, there's a passage in my patriarchal blessing I never understood. Matt or Scott, maybe when you went on a mission, you wanted to know everything that meant something in your patriarchal blessing. What does this mean? I want to be able to fulfill this. And I was really trying to do that. But there were about 2 or 3 sentences there I didn't understand, and I didn't understand them until that day. This is the meaning of this cryptic kind of sentence in your patriarchal blessing. And the sentence goes like this. It says, you shall hold a light where it may be seen from afar. Now, you're talking Latter-day Lights, okay? You shall hold a light. I erroneously was thinking I was somehow this light, okay? It wasn't that. And then it says, you shall give this, first it says, after that sentence, it says, this will be a blessing to those who prepared to hear the counsel of truth. This you will give in season and in the hour of need. Well, now is the season and the hour of need. What is that? It's Christ, basically. Christ is the light that you shall hold up. So this park and all, it's like, you didn't know. How old was I? 30 years ago, 46. That's when I seriously started. That's kind of late for an artist. See, I thought I was going to be a painter all my life. But here's this huge kind of a thing to do. And I was 46 years old, and I didn't think I was good enough. Just like deja vu back in 1976.
Right.
So the same thing. I promised the Lord, it was a covenant again. I will work on this every day that I can. Whether I see it actually happen or not, I don't know. That's not the covenant. The covenant is I would do the work. So to come this far as we have right now, to see how much progress we've made is incredibly edifying for me to be able to see how this has come. Because for so many years, I was like a voice crying in the wilderness. Here's this guy ensconced in his studio in Oregon, and nobody knows what I'm doing, just the Lord. And I'm working on this big, huge project, a piece at a time. Now, Michael Hall, who's a sculptor, a very fine sculptor, he's a couple of years older than my oldest daughter, so we're kind of generation apart. I was introduced to him 20 years ago. He helped me to do, this is the place monument or Heritage Park, the Mormon Battalion sculpture, the Mormon Battalion monument. They're huge sculptures. At the time, why did I do that? Remember President Packer, he was now President Packer, but he knew who did the Lehi's dream. One of my friends wrote him a letter saying, hey, did you know what your effect of your address was? This painting would never have been painted. And so he liked that painting. He used it in one of his videos, but he also knew who I was up in Oregon. And when I started to create a small model of what this would look like and started to create some of the sculptures, I actually had an interview with him. It was right around the turn of the millennium, year 2000. And he and some of the other brethren were in this room, and they looked at what I'd done and some of my figures, and he said, oh, this is too big. You can't do this just starting off. You need something smaller. That's how the Mormon Battalion monument came to be. I had a friend of mine of Walla Walla, Washington State, and he was active in the Mormon Battalion Association, and he knew they wanted to have a sculpture done. And they said, hey, why don't you try and do a sculpture for Mormon Battalion? So I went down, met with the people, and the price was right. I didn't charge them anything. So they didn't have to pay the sculptor. So I started working on that with small figure. That's a funny story all of its own. I don't know how much I should give here and give some of those details away, but President Packer wanted to see what it looked like. So I brought my clay sculpture, which was a clay sketch, down to his office in Salt Lake. And I was explaining this and that, and it was busy. It had a lot of things. And he goes, hold it. And I go, oh, what do you want? Yeah, what would you like? He says, you're trying to say too many things with too much stuff. And it's like shooting water into a tub. When you're done, there's no water in it. You've got to make it more simple, like the sculpture in Concord that Daniel Chester French, where he's got a rifle that's the single soldier. That's what he wanted. Well, I'm not that simple. I always wanted to do it more complex, but so it became two separate sculptures from that. And Elder Ballard was actually he was the one that was the liaison between this is the Plains Heritage Park and the church. So I worked with him in composing this. We came up with these two big sculptures and so forth. And I became a bishop. I was called to be a bishop at this time. And I didn't have enough time as it was. So Michael Hall was introduced to me 20 years ago. So he and I have been doing sculpture ever since. And he's another major sculptor. In fact, he just had, if you saw General Conference this last time, they showed his sculpture on Temple Square. The church had him do that. Joseph Smith, the Father and the Son. That's quite an accomplishment. So we are working together, have been for 20 years, to build the Monument of the Americas. We added a third sculptor, Jeremy Hooley, who teaches art at Lehigh High School, whatever. He is mainly the founding of America, and I'll get into that in a little bit. So there are three of us now doing these sculptures all together. That makes about 73 sculptures that we have planned so far to go in the garden. So that's the spiritual nature behind this. How come I'm doing what I'm doing? I certainly didn't set out to do it. It wasn't some, harebrained scheme of mine. I really felt like it was a divine calling. So that's why I'm doing it. Talk about how do you become a better sculptor? I did take some instruction. I was no fool. All of this may have been God-given, but I did my best to have people who knew the business to teach me painting. Patrick DeVonis and Gary Smith, those are some big names. I had Gary Sussman. He was with the the New York Students Art League. He helped me with sculpture, plus some people over in Italy. I went to Italy to learn how to carve marble. I thought I would do some marble pieces. Come to find out they take so long. I don't have that many years left, so I'm doing mainly clay and bronze. But I did one. I wanted to do one of Jesus in marble. And President Packer, he wanted to see the clay. And I showed him the clay, what I was going to do. This is worth telling. He and now President Oaks, it was Elder Oaks at the time, met with me. And they were looking at my clay. And at the time it was a figure that I thought ultimately would go into the park, the Monument of the Americas. By the way, why is it called Monument of the Americas? Because it includes not only the Book of Mormon account in the Americas, but also the founding of America. It's a separate park. Okay. We call that the American Covenant Garden. It's smaller, but it has a big potential to become many sculptures. There are about 16 sculptures that are going in there. The rest go into the Book of Mormon side. But I was making this clay sculpture of the Savior, and President Packer and Elder Oaks were critiquing it. That's quite an experience, actually. And I remember President Packer was asking some questions about it. I had a baby alpaca on one side and then an old world lamb that the Savior was holding. And he said, "Why is the alpaca on there?" And I explained why. And he says, "People might question what that is. It should be as simple as possible." Remember, he likes that. Mm-hmm. So we took that off. And then Elder Oaks said, "Did you use yourself for a model?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "He looks pretty skinny and thin, And I said, "Well, it's easy to copy your own hands and stuff, because they're on the end of your arm." And he said, "No," he says, "you need to use a model that's much more powerful, bodybuilder, whatever." He says, the Savior was physically powerful, not only spiritually powerful." Huh. I understand that. So they wanted to set me back to do more stuff. I had been talking with some of the church artists prior to that, and we were talking about a Jewish nose and the nose that I gave the Savior. And he said, I said to President Packer, I said, the art department people says I did the nose wrong. I should have given him a Jewish nose. And I said, Jewish noses, it's something very ugly. I mean, the Jewish surgeons were the first ones to do rhinoplasties on Jews because they hated their nose. Anyway, he chuckled a little bit like that, you know. But then he did this. He went like this. No Jewish nose. And he said it with a conviction that I took that to mean he knows what the Savior looks like. And when I brought that back as a marble statue, we presented it again to President Packer. This was, a year later almost. And I'd gone to Italy and I'd carved this out, and then I finished it in my garage, and I had my young men out there sanding with me and filing. It takes a lot of filing and sanding, to do a marble statue. And then I took it to Salt Lake and presented it to President Packer. He had, again, Elder Ballard there, and we were looking at it. I became friends for different reasons with Larry Miller. Larry Miller was with me, and we were there together. And everybody was talking about this and that and about what the Savior looked like. President Packer said to Larry Miller, because I didn't hear it, but Larry Miller told me right after that. He said, "Did you hear what President Packer said?" And I said, "No." He said, "Why do you argue with somebody who knows?"
Oh, wow.
So President Packer was always known to be a man of prophecy and deep spiritual roots, but it was a privilege to be tutored in a way from those brethren. Yeah. And I did. I changed things. I tried to do it the way they wanted. And President Hinckley put that sculpture in the MTC, in the Woodruff building, the Woodruff administration building. I know they're changing things around and rebuilding right now. We'll see where it ends up. But after he looked at it, he told me something I didn't expect. He says, "Can you wait around later today?" And I said, "Well, of course." He said, I want the First Presidency to see the sculpture." And actually, by the end of the day, all the 12 had seen that sculpture with the First Presidency, which is President Hinckley and Elder Faust and President Monson. So after they saw it, he called me over to the West Conference Room, and he said, "President Hinckley would like to put this in the MTC. However, he wants you to put it up on a pedestal so people can see straight in the eyes of the Savior. And he wants you to take the nose and make it a little bit thinner right through here than what I had it. And I had some marble between the fingers. Take that marble out and thin the nose right here." And President Packer said to him, "No problem, President. We got a plastic surgeon who could do that." And so I did. I took my file and I filed it and sanded it and did just like they wanted to, and put it in the MTC where we unveiled it. So that was really a marvelous experience to do this and to feel the power of the Spirit helping me with these things. When I first arrived in Italy and I'd had a person there rough it out, they didn't do much on the face. And so I arrived after everyone had gone home. The compressors were still going. I still had some air pressure. Use an air hammer when you're cutting and carving marble. And I was working on the Savior's face, and the light from the setting sun was coming through. And that was a really powerful spiritual experience for me. I really felt the Savior close. So powerful experience it was. I felt it one more time other than that. When I was working on the Savior's, it was now clay, life size and a quarter. The Savior has his finger up in the air and he's teaching the sermon at the temple. That's 3 Nephi 12 through 15. It was patterned after a sculpture, or actually a painting, where there's teaching the Sermon on the Mount by Karl Bloch. And everybody in the church recognizes that's teaching the Sermon on the Mount. And I use that pose for teaching, because of the Book of Mormon version of that, teaching at the temple. And I was working on that. It was around Christmas time and listening to the Christmas program. But anyway, I was working on the Savior's face in clay, and it literally seemed to come to life. It was looking at me. Magnifying my poor efforts. You get some of these really powerful moments, and there's so much of hard work in between, but it's all worth it. So grateful to be able to do this.
Wow.
So here we are at Heber. Many, many times we've been thwarted, and so it's sometimes you want to give up. Where are we going to build this park? It was going to be. Gee, where did we look? We looked at St. George, the Los Angeles area. We looked at Nauvoo, Illinois. We looked all up and down the Wasatch Front, figuring that the people in Utah might prize it more than people in Illinois, for example. And we had about 7 acres donated to us on top of Traverse Mountain. If you know where that is, it's on a they call it Traverse because it's like 90 degrees from the Wasatch Front. It sticks out like an isthmus, and it divides Salt Lake Valley from Utah Valley. And we were given some land that would look into both sides. We were going to put the Savior right there. But Draper, that had jurisdiction, said, we don't want, this is going to be a visitors, quite a tourist feature. We don't want any more traffic up there. It's already choked. You can't build up there. So we had to give the land back. It was going to be at Thanksgiving Point for 2 years. That's where it was going to go. And the board, unanimously said, yes, that's where we want. And after we had enough sculptures, maquette size, or small ones, we took it there and we presented them. Everybody was, wow, this is really going to be neat. And then about a month later, I get an email saying, we think this should have its own venue. So I called up Karen Ashton. I go, what gives? And basically, it's too big for her park. And you need your own venue. So at the time, I was disappointed. But come to think about it now, we are building a park where there will be no admission fee, or maybe $1 or something, just to make sure we don't have vagrant people living in there. We don't want that. Pay $1 to get in or something. Families can get in for a few bucks, and if they have to go to the Thanksgiving Point to see the sculptures there, they have to $100 to get in, or $80 or something. We want that different. So I have control of the sculptures, but I have to raise the money. One other thing I'll tell you, Elder Oaks, now President Oaks, he said to me, if you think you want the church to get involved with this, you'll do a better job if you do it privately by yourselves. You can do a work for the church that the church cannot do. When the Tabernacle Choir gives concerts, we find they have the best results when there are no name tags, no missionaries, anything, just done that way. And so you'll be able to do a better job. And I can see why now, looking back on that. But now that means we have to raise the money. So it's a multi-million-dollar project. We think it's at least $20 million. Right now, to give you finances, we have about $5 million in assets and no debt. We look really good. We have 30 people almost here, and most of them from Heber Valley. Some are in other states, some in Salt Lake or Utah valleys. But we have a meeting every month discussing what we're going to do. We've got architect. We've got a landscape architect. In fact, we have 2. We've got a civil engineer. We got lawyers. We have public publicists and people who are trying to get it built. We've got a contractor, people who want to build this. We got a stone mason a stone cutter. We've just got lots of people. All these people serve for free, like I do. I've never done anything to earn money, but I'm still the largest donor in money, and of course in time, right? So somebody has to get it launched, and that's what we're doing.
Oh my goodness.
Big story.
I love this. I mean, when you think about that moment where you had this flash in your mind back in the temple 30 years ago, did you at that time see the scale of like how big of a project this was? Or was it just like, did you see like one little tiny,
To a certain extent, yeah. I mean, I could see it. In fact, it's about the scale now of what I envisioned. That's right. And the Savior is 18 feet tall. Took me a year to sculpt that. I did that in Pendleton at my colleague, my friend's garage, his car garage. Even then, we couldn't put the head on. We had to keep the head off because it's so big, It had gone through the roof, But yeah, I did. I mean, it matches up with my impressions at the time.
oh my gosh.
So, and how did it get into Park City then?
Yeah.
How did you find that spot?
Well, it's not Park City.
I mean,
Heber Valley.
Heber. Yeah, Heber, sorry.
That story, after we lost the ground on top of Traverse Mountain, a friend of mine, who he kept saying, you need to come to Heber Valley. Heber Valley would love this. And he's from Wasatch County, the same one. His grandfather homesteaded ground 150 years ago. So he said, the saints in Heber will really rush to support this. And that was like a prophecy. That was exactly true. The city council, the mayor, they just, thank you for coming here. The ground that we were giving, what happened, we had a piece of ground, which is actually right next to where the temple has been announced. We didn't know that at the time. We bought 6 acres. I did on behalf of Monument Americas. It's a little small. We're thinking, could we still do it? But then they announced the temple. And about this same time, a guy by the name of Mike Bradshaw, he handles all the real estate affairs for the Sorensen family, the James Sorensen Sr. They're the same family that donated quite a bit to the construction of the Nauvoo Temple. They have this huge amount of land, and Heber City, they annexed it for 750 homes or whatever. And as part of that, they have a parcel of ground for a carve out to get back to the community for some kind of amenities. And in there, they were thinking of a park and an amphitheater and something like us. He came to our presentation and said, how would you like 10 acres if we donate it to you? I says, where's the ground? So he took up there and showed me where the ground is. And I'm just like, oh, this is where it was meant to be. See, my regret in building it at Thanksgiving Point, it was down in a hole. I mean, you drive by and you have to look down to see it. And the Savior down there, that's the only thing that didn't match up with me. And there was this windmill behind him, one of those big windmills. I didn't like that. But here, you talk about, you shall hold a light where it may be seen from afar. This will be seen all over the valley. It'll be all lit up. We're going to light it up at night. And it's just perfect. Most of the valley will be able to see it. It's just beautiful. So I said, done. We're going to do this. So we kept that 6 acres and I sold it in an appreciation and put that money into the sculpture. So we're using that money to produce sculptures. So it was just, the Lord knew what was going on. I just wish he let me know 30 years ago, 25 years ago. It would have saved a lot of hard work, but we're dedicated.
So what's your plan right now as far as like fundraising and, like, are you just asking for straight donations? Are you guys planning on doing some type of fundraising events? Do you have people who can be like monthly sponsors or one time, how does that work?
We've had, because we're enlarging sculptures, it gives us the unique ability to honor people, big patrons, because we sculpt them right into it. Our Moroni and some of the angels, they're actually figures of people that a family wanted to honor. I have four donors, $100,000 each, and I created for them somebody they wanted to honor, even posthumously. A daughter who was killed in a tragic accident. That's our contractor. That's how we came to know him. He said, I want my daughter to be kneeling at the feet of the Savior. The same place where the Savior is teaching the Sermon on the Mount. We're creating figures that are at his feet as Nephites, Lamanites, whatever, listening to the Savior preach the sermon at the temple. That's one way we have of raising money. I have one donor who's our largest donor. He loved the title Liberty. I haven't said much about the title Liberty. The title Liberty, the sculpture that I created, it will be the largest sculpture in Utah, bronze sculpture. It has Moroni up on top of a mountain with his sword up there, holding the title Liberty, which has some of the elements of the American flag on it. On the other side is George Washington, 12 feet tall. He's holding the infant republic personified in this baby who's grasping the title of liberty. And this infant has been given over to the father of our country by Columbia, who is behind him around here, who's the same Columbia that's on top of the Capitol Dome in Washington, D.C. Then you have a soldier from the Civil War. So you have Revolutionary War, Civil War. I took one of the figures from Mount Suribachi in Iwo Jima, who's pushing up the American flag. He's pushing up the title of Liberty, helping to do that. And then a fourth soldier who fought in Desert Storm. One of my patients fought in Desert Storm, and I said, hey, would you dress up in your modern Army uniform and let me sculpt you? And so I did. And she's down there, at the bottom, kind of fixing the title Liberty pole. And so all of this is it's kind of a 360-degree piece. And Moroni's sword, the tip of his sword to the ground will be about 25 feet. It's huge. We unveiled that at the BYU Stadium, in front of the BYU Stadium here on the 4th of July last year.
Oh my gosh.
That's,
like the attention to detail, like the way that you're allowing families to choose people, loved ones of theirs, to be part of these sculptures and to just live on forever in this, and such a beautiful testament to the different stories in the Book of Mormon and to the Savior himself. It's, oh my gosh.
If your viewers want to see a whole presentation on it, the one that's up to date, we had our groundbreaking in May, and it's a good introduction to the different sculptures and so forth and what we're doing. But it's on YouTube. I can give you the call numbers for that.
We can put that link in the description for everybody too.
Yeah, because it's worth watching. I think it's a spiritual kind of production, but it kind of shows what we're doing, where we've come from. I was going to say that the donor who was really taken by the title of Liberty, that whole sculpture, put up most of the money for that. I mean, he was paying $20,000 a month until he had contributed about $400,000. That piece was $650,000 to cast.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gosh.
That's right.
That's phenomenal.
They're not.
What goes into creating a bronze sculpture? Like, what's the process?
Okay, I'll take you through this real fast. Everybody thinks it's a simple thing. You got a baby's booty. Are you going to bronze it? Yeah, right. You just spray bronze on it. They're not bronzed. No, that's bronze paint. What it takes, usually the original that you're creating is destroyed in the process of making the mold. All right. So a big piece, like the title Liberty I just talked to you about, was cut up into about 400 pieces.
Okay.
Each one of those pieces then was molded. It's by silicon, a silicon kind of a paint. They painted over that and let that dry, make sure it's thick enough. Then they'll put what we call a mother mold over that, something which will not allow any kind of distortion. It's rigid. So you got the soft, pliable underneath and then the rigid. You take off the mother mold, you open this silicon mold. If it's a small enough piece, you can completely encase it. It has a seam, you pull it open, and you take the original, you throw it away. Now, the mold is what is important. You go to the wax room and you close up the mold, and it usually has a hole, and you'll pour wax, melted wax in there, and swirl it around, let that harden. You go to the spruing room. The spruing room, they sit down, they'll chase it, make sure everything is fine. Then they put on these pieces of wax called sprues, and they'll stick it there and maybe over here, and then they put a wax cup on the top. So you got this wax cup, and then you've got the piece, and you've got the sprues. You take that, and you go to the slurry room, dip it into something that looks like antifreeze, and then you put some silica sand around it, and you get coarser and coarser gravel, let it all harden. Take that, put it into an oven, burn out all that wax. Now you got a hard silica shell. You take that, stick it into maybe a trough of sand. You heat up the bronze, you melt it, and then you pour that into it, 1700 degrees or whatever. You pour that into it, let it harden, let it cool, break off the shell, get that piece of metal, and then you weld it together with the other 400 pieces. And that's how you build the sculpture. That's why it costs so much.
Oh,
wow.
My gosh.
Goodness.
Like, how do people even figure that out?
Yeah,
Say
right.
that again?
How do people even figure that out?
How did
You know what I mean? Like,
well, from the 1500s, they used to do it in one shot. You know, they didn't break it up into pieces. So you had one shot at getting your wax to become bronze, you know.
Mm-hmm. So when you're coming up with 18-foot bronze statues, the logistics behind that is just mind-boggling.
The Savior, it's part of a production, if you will. President Packer didn't want that alpaca on there, but for this, I put it back in because it's a dichotomy. The Savior sits up on basically a foundation, which is the gold plates. And the gold plates is now a waterfall, and there's a pool and a little island that the Savior sits on, but the water flows over the plates, symbolic of the truth, and falls down into a pool where there is a world. And then on this side, you have the Eastern or the Western hemisphere and the Eastern hemisphere. And they look like, you can see that, we call them the hands of man. They look like adoring hands like this, and they're life-size people from the different destinations of the world, both halves of the world. Other sheep I have, that is the name of the piece. So it's a presentation, and that's kind of the central figure of the park. And as you come into the park and through the visitor center into the garden, into the park, there's a arch of triumph. As you walk through it, it frames the Savior up above, and it's pretty spectacular. We have a virtual tour of that, which is on the YouTube channel that I did that production. So you can see how it is. It's beautiful.
yeah. Wow. So here's a question for you, especially with, and I'm not going political per se. We're just in that time period, right? Like, we know that things are just going to get better and better and worse at the same time. Like, we're going to have more of that separation between good and evil the closer we get to Christ's return. So when you're doing something like this and you're putting all this manpower and this money and this energy and this talent into these amazing pieces, is there a part of you that's scared about what happens if someone decides to go destroy them or to vandalize them or, to graffiti all over them, like, do you have measures in place that are going to
Well, let me tell you a story. If you've ever been to Florence, Italy, Firenze,
not yet.
I've been a bunch because I spent a lot of time in Italy.
Wow.
For 500 years, they have not needed anybody to look over the sculptures that are in the Palazzo Vecchio, or the old place where for a long time they had the David there. They've now put that indoors. And some other sculptures that were done. Cellini Benvenuto, it's Perseus and Medusa, and all of these famous sculptures. They've never needed anybody to watch over them until our generation.
Yeah.
That tells me something. Yeah, it needs protection. So, I mean, fence around it. When it's a park up and running, there will be a security guard, and there are cameras, so that we can kind of keep tabs on that. It's private, so it means we can eject whoever we need to, But yeah, we know that at least in certain recent political administrations and so forth, they were pretty lax on that stuff. They're clamping down a little more, but we're a pretty conservative community here, and I think we'll have cooperation.
That's true.
Yeah,
Heber,
that possibility is always there.
Yeah, but Heber is a pretty nice, laid-back community, so you probably have a little bit of a safe haven over there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's true.
So how far along are you in the development process of the actual park?
We have the land. It's been given in 2 parcels. The groundbreaking was done on the first parcel. We're getting the next parcel here any day. And then we've been working on the landscaping, engineering, and the designing. That's why if you look at that virtual tour, some of that is actually taken from what we want to do in terms of landscaping. But we don't have a road there yet, and we don't have the utilities yet. So it's raw ground. And you'll see in that movie that we're right on the ground where the park's going to be, but it's raw land. So that has to be terraced and all that kind of stuff. But we've been planning that. We're in the planning stages. We hope if we get the road and we can do some cuts and so forth, we can start to do the foundations of these things next year. Our target for opening is 2029. We still need about $15 million. So yeah, what do we do for, I'll tell you, if there's anybody listening who has a legacy and they want to memorialize somebody in the family, and they want to give him, they love the Book of Mormon and they want to do something, we actually can sculpt them into something where their family will know who they are. And because it's a spiritual thing, we're not going to say stuff like, this sculpture was donated by, we're not doing that.
Right.
We're doing something a lot cooler. We have them do their testimony, and we're going to make a little bronze plaque, put it on stone, and just set that by there. It doesn't say they did this, but their testimony's right there. So people will really have a way of memorializing, and this is second to none. A lot of people confuse us with Angela Johnson's work at Thanksgiving Point. We were supposed to be the Book of Mormon, and her place was supposed to be the New Testament. But then we met with her 7 years ago, and we were kind of thinking, do we want to combine forces? She says, no, I want to do this thing on my own. I think we kind of encouraged her to do her own Book of Mormon thing. And she fundraised, and she got it done in 7 years and beat us to the punch. So we were the original, but now we're like, oh, me too. But this was the stuff that we're doing takes a lot of time and effort. They're very meticulous, and we're happy to be where we are in Heber.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like your whole career and has kind of led you up to this moment, and this is your time, right? This is your time to make your dream a reality.
I'll give you one more spiritual thought. 2 years ago, in August of 2023, for months, it was getting more painful for me to do surgery and reach up like that. What is the matter with me? I felt like I'd separated my ribs. I did that once upon a time. Anyway, I called up one of my friends. I said, this is not right. You need to do a CAT scan on me. So I ordered a CAT scan. And he calls me up on the phone. He goes, Steve, it doesn't look good. And I knew what the diagnosis was, is multiple myeloma. It's one of the blood cancers. And I was, at the time, just, oh my heavens, what's going to go on? The people that I knew, even colleagues, when they were given that diagnosis, they had died within weeks or months of their diagnosis. I thought I was going to die in 2023.
Oh, wow.
And I remember I was working on something, sculpture, and it was a song in the background. I was operate and do sculpture with music. I have for 40 years. And it wasn't a spiritual song necessarily, but the lyrics came through, have a little faith. And my ears picked up, and the Spirit hit me right here, said, Steve, have a little faith in your Father in heaven. So that was about 800 days ago. And not a day goes by that I don't thank God for another day. In those 2 years, I've been able to enlarge 10 big panels as well as multiple other figures. I am just producing sculpture at a faster rate than I ever have. After 1 month of treatment, I went into remission, and I've been in remission ever since. I have my old energy. I've always been blessed with a ton of energy. I have it all. I'm able to get down on the floor at 72 and a half and stand on my head, do whatever I have to do this sculpture, and I can still do that. So I thank the Lord every day. My life's in his hands every day. And I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I said to my oncologist, I says, hey, I need about 6 years to do this. I can get you 6 years. He says, heck, we've got treatments coming down the pike that are looking really good. We haven't even tried them on you, but they can't detect any of the plasma cells, the cancerous plasma cells in my body, my marrow, anywhere. There's no evidence of it. And I have all my energy back. And I don't have medicine to do anymore. I still have my medical license, but I treat my family and my friends. So I don't see patients. I'm not doing any surgeries. I'm just doing sculpture every day, doing a great job.
Man. Well, congratulations on that. That's a huge, huge thing to be able to go into remission. I imagine for you, it just kind of solidifies what it is that you want to do, what you want to finish, and how important this project is to you. Is that probably accurate? Yeah. Golly. Man, you are just you're just phenomenal. This has been such an amazing story, and I just thank you so much for coming on here today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me and for telling people about the Monument of the Americas. We still need some fundraising. It won't happen till our target is 2030. That's 200 years since the Book of Mormon was printed. We want a big celebration. So 2029 is the target date for us to get open. Our largest donor we're in his will for multi-millions, so we'll always have an endowment fund. This is going to fly for sure. We just want it before 2030. Anyway.
So what's the best way if someone wants to, because every little bit helps, right? So even if you're not able to donate $100,000, if you can donate something.
Monumentoftheamericas.org. You can donate through there.
Okay.
If you go to that webpage, you can see it. And if you have serious in designs, you think you can help us in some way, then email me and send it on to me. I meet with people. Just the other day, we need some new carpet in this place we moved to in Heber. The carpet person comes from Utah Valley, and he sees what we're doing, and he was really touched. He came into my studio, and my wife says, "Yeah, you want to donate?" Well, I can't give $100,000, and I said, "Hey, there's carpet in the visitor center. Why don't you donate carpet?" "I can do that," he says. I mean, we find people like this all the time. Can I do this? Can I do that? So God bless him.
Yeah. Well, and God works in mysterious ways. And you've seen that in your life, right? So
Yes.
Yeah, I think you can make this happen, and
We
you
will.
never know who's listening, right? So
That's right. No, we'll make
Very,
it
very
happen.
true.
It's
Very,
time.
very true.
We want it in faster time, not 20 years.
Exactly. Wow.
Awesome. Well, this has been amazing, Steve. Any last thoughts you'd like to share before we kind of wrap things up?
Well, how you started out that sentence, isn't it true? There's rich blessings that I've received, a tremendous sense of satisfaction. With the diagnosis I have, are you ready to meet the Savior? Well, I've had some powerful spiritual confirmations. You're doing right. You're doing a good job. These are works of righteousness. And that's been very gratifying to me. It hasn't been easy, but I'm keeping my covenants. I'm a covenant-keeping person. And that's how you get the richest of God's blessings, are when you make covenants and keep them.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for coming on here today, for sharing your story, for sharing your talent with everybody, and for sharing this vision that you had of something that I really think it's going to be so, so great in lighting the world. To all of our listeners, guys, thank you for tuning in too. Please, please, please make sure that you guys go visit these links that we're going to put in here. Go check out what they are doing with this amazing monument park in Heber. And if you feel so inclined to be able to donate anything at all, that would be fantastic. Make sure you reach out and let them know what you guys can do. But the easiest thing that you can do right now is comment and do your 5-second missionary work. Share, share, share. And the more people we can get this episode in front of, the more opportunity we have to be able to help Steve and his whole crew to make this a reality.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you both.
And if anybody else has a story that they'd like to share, go to latterdaylights.com or email us at latterdaylights@gmail.com, and let's have you on the show just like we had with Steve. And we'd love to have you back, Steve, by the way.
Yeah, we'd love to see progress.
Give us updates as you go, so that we can continue to share your story. And I'm sure our listeners will want to see kind of where you're at along the way.
Yeah, we're making good progress.
Absolutely. And Steve, if you have any statues that are wearing hoop earrings, you can design them after me. I'll take that spot. It's totally fine.
Okay.
That's funny.
Great.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Steve, for coming on.
You're
we
welcome.
really appreciate you. And
Yeah,
thanks everybody for tuning in. And we will talk to you next week with another episode from Latter Day Lights. Till then, take care.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Alicia. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.